welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karkur Gold, your host of this series, in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of both the art and the narrative, as well as personal response to each chapter, and discussion of how these chapters connect to the rest of the series. As usual, we will begin the video with a reading of the chapter we are currently on. This is Chapter 80, the beginning of Volume 10. So, let's begin. This is Bleach, Volume 10, a Shonen Jump manga, with story and art by Ch.80. I've recently learned to tie almost perfect butterfly knots, something I've never been able to do and had almost given up on. Life is a daily learning process. So now, whenever somebody asks me, "What's your hobby?" it's my policy to respond, "Butterfly knots." This is a limited time offer, so act soon. Ch.80. Bleach is author Ch.80's second title. Kubo made his debut with Zombie Powder, a 4-volume series for Weekly Shonen Jump. To date, Bleach has been translated into numerous languages and also inspired an animated TV series that began airing in Japan in 2004. Beginning its serialization in 2001, Bleach is still a mainstay in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. In 2005, Bleach was awarded with the prestigious Shogakukan Manga Award in the Shonen Boys category. This volume is rated T for teen, recommended for ages 13 and up. This volume contains violence and alcohol and tobacco use. We reach out with our hands, brush away the clouds and pierce the sky to grab the moon and Mars, but we still can't reach the truth. These are the Bleach All-Stars and Stories. We have Sosuke Aizen, Genichi Maru, Ikkaku Madarame, Ichigo Kurosaki, Kukaku Shiba, and Ganju Shiba. The plot so far. One fateful night, Ichigo Kurosaki encounters Soul Reaper Rukia Kuchiki and ends up helping her do her job, which is cleansing lost souls, called Hollows, and guiding them to the Soul Society. But when Rukia is arrested and taken back to the Soul Society to be executed, Ichigo vows to save her. He and a band of friends make the dangerous journey to the other world. There, they attempt to infiltrate the Seirei, the abode of the Soul Reapers, only to be thwarted by Gen Ichimaru. With time running out, Yorichi turns for help to Kikaku Shiba, Rukongai's premier fireworks technician. This is Bleach, Volume 10, Tattoos on the Sky, and we will be reading Bleach Chapter 80, The Shooting Star Project. So, here we are, Bleach Chapter 80, Shooting Star Project. Huh? A fireworks expert? That's right. Kokane Hiko, Shirogane Hiko, hoist it! Yes, ma'am! What? What the floor's rising. Hey, the roof's opening up. How do you like that? Did that scare you? This is Kukaku Shiba's exclusive fireworks launch pad. The flower crane cannon! Who said you could get on the pedestal? Sorry! Bleach, Chapter 80, The Shooting Star Project. This is no time for jokes. I don't care if you're a fireworks wizard. There's no way you're going to launch us with that. It's insane. We'd be killed for sure. What's this? A Reishukaku, a spirit core. You could press your palm against it and fill it with spirit energy. How's that again? Huh? Isn't it obvious? You just channel your powers into your hands, like when you cast a spell. Actually, as I told you before, he's something of a makeshift Soul Reaper. He can't do spells. What? Fine. Ganju, show him how it's done. Yes, ma'am. Give it to me. Oh, so you want to play? Yeah, come and get it if you can. I'd rather die than be taught by you. That's enough. I'm sorry. So... What the... This is the cannonball. Cannonball. Listen carefully. If you think the Seirei walls that surround the Seirei is the only thing protecting it, you're wrong. That wall is made from an ore that's rare even in the Soul Society, called Ch.80, lethal presence rock, that completely blocks spiritual energy. That means you can't make a hole in the wall with spirit energy. Oh, so that's it. That's why there were no guards other than the gatekeeper. Another troublesome thing about Ch.80 is that it emits waves that break down spirit energy. So in effect, the waves from a sphere form a sphere around the Seirei, from high in the sky to deep in the ground. Complete coverage. Of course, if you flew into something like that, being made of reishi, you'd disintegrate. That's where the cannonball comes in. Sis, I'm feeling weak. Suck it up. This is my own invention, the special hard spiritual partition penetration device. By infusing the spirit core with your combined spiritual energies, you will create a cannonball that can punch through the Seireitei's barrier. The plan is to fire it from the flower crane cannon, and in you go. It's a rough ride, but there's no other way. That's all. Any questions? Good. Then you're dismissed. Go to the dojo and start practicing with the spirit core. Kogane Hiko, Shirogane Hiko, escort them. Wah! No. And you'd better train hard. If any one of you loses focus, it's boom! What? You never told us that? Ganju, you can go now. Take that and go downstairs and help them practice. But sis, are you really going to help them? What do you mean? I don't like it. Helping a Soul Reaper, that's just... What am I supposed to tell Big Brother? Sis, Ganju, I told you, never speak of that. Sis, now go. And Ganju, don't ever let them see your face like that. This is the first time I've gotten to wear a lieutenant's insignia. Naturally, it's the first time I've been forced to wear one too. Tetsuzaemon Iba, Assistant Captain, 7th Company. Assistant Captains are to put on their lieutenant insignia and stand by in conference room 2, eh? Hey. Renji. Hi, Mr. Iba. Momo Hinamori, Assistant Captain, 5th Company. Hello, Momo. What, you're the only one here? Yes, looks that way. The captains and assistant captains are all busy running the Soul Society. It could take half a day for all of us to get here. Rengiku Matsumoto, Assistant Captain, 10th Company. I haven't been able to reach my captain at all. I don't know what to do. And who is your captain again? You know, it's Hitsugaya. Oh, the genius. That's a pain. Renji. Huh? Have you seen my captain? Captain Eisen? No, I haven't. Oh. He's been acting strange. He was strange all morning, and he wouldn't tell me why. I don't know what to do. Don't worry. It's probably nothing. I'll probably cancel the order any moment. Shoot. What is it? What the heck is going on? Captain Eisen! No! No, Mr. Ichigo! Not woo! More like nuah! Una! No! Nuah! What do you mean? You gotta explain it better. Forgive me, big brother. I'm going to help a Soul Reaper. The Soul Reapers killed you. But if you were still alive, and I didn't help them, you'd scold me, wouldn't you? You, who loved Soul Reapers and died a Soul Reaper. How to distinguish Kogane Hiko from Shirogane Hiko? Lots of people can't tell the difference. I think they're kind of twins that don't look alike. The one with a square face and a split chin is the younger brother, Shirogane Hiko. The one with a narrow chin and a longer face is the older brother, Kogane Hiko. That is it for Bleach Chapter 80, The Shooting Star Project. Thank you for joining me. This is also the beginning of the volume, so we have a little bit to cover here as we get into our analysis of the art and the narrative, as well as a bit of personal response sprinkled throughout. Usually I kind of save that for the end, but you get a little bit here and there. So this is volume 10 of Bleach, Tattoo on the Sky, which I love that title. I love that song. If you've watched the earlier videos, you've probably already heard me gush about how much I enjoy Maruya Murakazu's, if that's his name, right? Anyway, Ichigo's voice actor is Seiyu, did this song for the Bleach Beat collection called Tattoos on the Sky. Very much worth going and listening to. I might even link that in the description for this one. Because man, I love that song. It's a jam. But that aside, other than listening to that song, which you absolutely should do if you're a fan of Bleach, also, a fan of Ichigo, which I assume most people are, but there are some people that read Bleach and don't like him. Regardless, this is the 10th volume, and this is Ganju Shiba on the cover. We get to see him in full color, and so we get that confirmation that his vest and everything, that he isn't quite a Soul Reaper, because he does not have the Shuhaku Sho. If you were wondering what his garments look like, they are green, covering over the vest, over white. But yeah, also his bandana being, green as well. If you're familiar with the anime, you're familiar with this coloration. I do like it. I do think it gives him kind of an interesting colorization. He reminds me a lot in design of like a Japanese sort of dock worker, or kind of like someone that has like a real like a real blue collar job. And so I dig that a lot. I like the sash that he wears, as well as the small sword that's on his back. Honestly, I'm kind of a big fan of Ganju's design. A lot more so in the manga than the anime. Again, I think the anime certainly has its biases, I will say. I think that there were some people that were working on the anime and just kind of wanted to portray these characters in certain ways. One thing that I will say for sure is certain relationships get played up way more in the anime, especially in the filler episodes. But we hardly ever see Ganju looking this yoked out and even, dare I say it, cool in the anime. It's a rare thing. So I like that the manga treats Ganju with, I don't know, some level of respect, even though maybe he had this cool design and everything, but he's still a bit of a loser. But we're getting a little bit more depth for him, which is nice. Of course, he features on the volume cover for volume 10, so our assumption is that he will be a focus in this volume, just as the previous volume had a focus on needing to go and visit Kukaku Shiba, and Kukaku was on that volume, not just because she was an interesting denizen of the Rukon Guy, but given that we're still in the Rukon Guy, given that Ganju's going to be joining our team, it only makes sense that Ganju is the volume cover character. I do like his little Kubo's little aside on making these butterfly knots along with a picture of one. It's pretty cute. Yeah, knot making's fun. Learn how to make some knots. If you don't know how to tie at least a few simple knots, go learn how to tie a few simple knots. There's sites on YouTube and things. If you can't tie something down, if you can't make knots, that's a skill you should have. It's gonna do you well in life, one way or another. Anyway, here we have this character poem, which I assume is tied to Ganju, as he is the character pictured here. But there's, I think it's fairly clear. The whole reaching out with our hands, brushing away the clouds, piercing the sky, grab the moon and Mars, but still can't reach the truth. So it's you could still be grasping for all these great things, these things that are beyond your reach, but the truth still avoids you, still eludes you. And so there's this idea that there's a truth that you can't ever quite grasp. And that idea is because you don't have the full context of anything ever. You only have your perspective and what people tell you, and you have to kind of just take what they tell you at face value. But you can't have the experiences of literally everybody. You can't be omniscient or omnipresent. You're limited to your own conscious perception, right? And so truth then is something that is always going to be a little bit more, even if there is an objective truth out there, the truth that you have to accept is going to be subjective to a degree. And so the idea is that this is really pertinent as we start to get into the Soul Society arc, because, not as far as our characters are concerned, but the Soul Reapers, at the very least, have this whole 14 Days of Conspiracy arc going on, right? There's this, this conspiracy around Rukia's execution that is, kind of troubling. And so people are trying to figure out the truth. We already have, just in this chapter alone, Renji's trying to kind of parse the truth. We know Aizen is trying to parse the truth. And then we have Momo, that she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows something weird's kind of going on with Aizen, that she noticed there was something wrong. She was asking Renji if he had seen Aizen. And Renji, even in that moment, lied to her. So there's already a good bit of, manipulation of what's true. There's already, people that don't know the full truth of things. There's already something suspect. And so the idea is, even though we have these characters that can literally breach the Soul Society, that can amass all these powers and do all these great things, just like, here, Ganju is able to, essentially escort these people through a magical cannonball that's going to shoot into the Ch.80. He's going to help them to rescue Rukia, which is a crazy feat from literal gods of death. Even Ganju still can't, he doesn't, obviously he's not a character that has the whole truth of the matter. I mean, we've already seen how incorrect he was regarding Ichigo, regarding the idea of Ichigo being a Soul Reaper. And then that truth of his passed on towards Kukaku. Although at that point, I think Kukaku is probably talking about, when she talks about helping a Soul Reaper, I believe that she's probably talking more about helping Rukia than she is with Ichigo. But it could apply to Ichigo as well. Anyway, we have the All-Stars and stories. We know all these folks. The only new face here, of course, is Ikkaku Madarame. We have not met that fella yet, but we will in this volume. He will be pretty significant in this volume, which is why he's pictured here. Of course, we have Ichimaru Gen looking, vaguely evil as he always does, but a little too happy and carefree looking for everything that's going on, right? We have Aizen with a concerned look on his face, as we know that he has his suspicions about what's going on. And then we get a pretty, defiant looking Ichigo, as well as a dipshit looking Ganju. We get Ganju looking a little out of his element, and Kukaku looking cool. So neat shots from all these characters. Again, we've already talked about this being called Tattoo on the Sky. Immediately, I feel like that's evocative of the idea that of them kind of entering from the sky. But of more than even that, it's this event that has left its mark upon like the heavens, right? Because that's where we are. But also, literally, the literal sky will be marked, which is again evocative, given that we are making our entrance through a firework, essentially. I like that we immediately follow up from what we had last chapter, that she mentioned that she was the fireworks expert, and that's the kind of reveal here, is that that's her whole plan to get them into the Ch.80, is essentially shooting them like fireworks. I do love that they have this whole underground system, and it only exists so these guys can crank them up to above ground. Like, why is it going to be underground the entire time, right? I do like, just like little layout things. I do like that the pillar for the the flower cannon or whatever, that is situated, like we get the blackness of the pillar on the left, and it goes all the way down the page like that. Like, that situation is really well handled, and like this, it's a little thing, but I appreciate the page being laid out that way. And yeah, this is also another great one because we get it here. It sort of kind of goes down the middle here, and then we get their cranking being the thing that's lifting it up. So just visually, these pages are working. I also like that this line is left to right bisected in the next panel, that we get this kind of left to right bisection as well. Really helps sell the idea of the roof opening up. It keeps it consistent. And we get this big towering deal, as well as the characters on the kind of floor on the bottom of it, which is, if you had the characters first on the top and this on the underneath, it would just be bad composition. So overall, nice bits of composition here and there. We really get the sense of all this. I love these Kurogane Hiko and Shirogane Hiko just, being like, voila! Another great moment as Kukaku finally is so excited to announce like her life's work, right? This is her whole thing, and then Ganju jumps in and like announce that it's the Flower Crane Cannon. She just kicks the ever living hell out of him. Goes spinning off bloody. I do love that we get a Chad chapter cover. We got an Orihime one just recently, as well as Rukia one. So I like that we're getting still these covers for the side characters, even if Chad hasn't had a significant line of dialogue in a while. He is a quieter character. He doesn't talk up a lot. He lets his fist do the talking. So but it is Chad looking nice and fanciful. I like the kind of scarf thing that he's got going on here, as well as the shading on his upper lip is magnificent. As you don't always expect that, and I think that's one of the things that Kubo starts to kind of develop, and you'll see a lot throughout his career working on Bleach, is that whenever it comes to these more detailed character portraits, he gets really good at kind of understanding the planes of the face and shading those in a way that is just like aesthetically pleasing. There's still a little bit of sketchiness to like some of the shading here and there. Like here, you can see like the lines aren't like fully connected. There's like a little bit of crossover in the lines here, but it's not that bad. I think that's going to stay the case for a lot of Bleach. That it's still going to have this like a little bit of a sketch quality to it. But this is certainly tighter, cleaner lines than what we've seen from a lot of Kubo's line work. And ultimately, I like this portrait. I think it's a good portrait of Chad. But you'll see that going forward. That like when it comes to the shading, and like if you really, for those of you familiar, when by the time that you get to the later arcs, like the Thousand Year Blood War arc that's currently being animated, one of the things that's exciting is that it looks like they're going to be able to actually keep a little bit of like the intensity of that shading and the way in which Kubo kind of has these very intense, like I say well sculpted, but like has an idea of how to portray these characters and how to really shade the planes of the face to really bring out the three dimensionality of anybody that he's depicting. So yeah, it's neat here. It's stylistic, but it's still like well done. And speaking of, we even get some kind of upper lip shading over here here on Uryu. But yeah, I love how he says, "I don't care if you're a fireworks wizard," and she kind of technically is. But I love that she just throws the spirit orb, spirit core, there to like knocks his glasses off. It comes over and it's got blood on it. Like, it's good stuff. But I like the design on this. Notably, this is another item in Bleach Brave Souls. I think it gives you protection against status elements. And so, I don't know, that's cute. Bleach Brave Souls had a real trouble figuring out accessories because so many of the like pieces of equipment in the Bleach series, you have things that are really unique to the characters, right? Like you couldn't have everyone equip Shunshin Rika, just like you couldn't have every single character equip like like a specific Shikai, right? Like it would make sense for everybody to be running around with Zangetsus. So like you had to find like stuff like captain's clothes or the lieutenant badge that shows up in this volume, are the spirit core, and some of them are kind of curious, like in Raku, the like the doll. But it always tickles me whenever I come across the actual kind of more obscure ones in the manga. But yes, here is the Reishukaku, the spirit core, which is pretty cool, and I love that Ichigo has no idea what to do with it. I like this is a kind of great effect that like he pauses and then is like how, and I like the effect used, just like this little stippled effect to kind of really quickly bring us down. It almost makes this panel drop into place. It has that effect for me, but it really helps to punctuate that, and I love this little exchange. We also get kind of how naturally a spiritual person could do, a spell. They channel their reishi into their hands, and then they manipulate that reishi in a way to give it form, right? And so here she's just kind of creating like formless energy. But say if you had a chant or something like a Hado or a Kido or a Bakudo chant, you could better form that reishi into the form that you wanted to bind somebody or shoot a fireball or whatever, right? And so this is basically just a device that you just pour your reishi into, and you just pull all of your spiritual power into it, and it'll be good, right? it'll create this shield around you. But Ichigo can't do that. He's never learned how to do that. Also, whenever I was recording this, my cat decided to start meowing around the time I was doing Yorichi's lines. Kind of funny. It's also a black cat, so I guess they just knew somehow. Anyway, I like that Ganju's going to be the mentor, but Ichigo's still got this like personal beef with Ganju, where he doesn't want to get taught by Ganju, where like he's just very resistant to this guy. And I love this little chibi ass Ganju looking like a dipshit. Again, I'm going to be critical of Ganju. I do actually like him a lot more, and I was surprised by that. But God, is he a loser? Anyway, I do like the way that like he does look kind of cool here whenever he finally does form the sphere of energy. I love the surprise of everybody. I like Orihime in the background, just like jaw on the ground, like whoa. Chad's just Chad. I love how proud Ganju looks, but like after this explanation in a page, he's like wheezing. So it clearly takes a lot out of you. Either that or Ganju doesn't have a lot to be taken out of him. But I love just like compare like how smug and proud he is there to like he's just over here huffing and dying next page. It's really good stuff. Um, but yeah, I like the explanation here. It's really good. I like that like the character gets framed with that familiar image that we already have of the walls and the Serite. I like that's already been used in this skell earlier to explain things to us, so immediately it's not that unfamiliar. And then, I also like that in tandem with that, we get this black backgrounded panel, and then this all fills with black because that's becoming evocative of what she's explaining. But I like that we still get this profile view of Kukaku because this could have just been a showing of the Seirete and the wall and not had Kukaku there. But I'm glad that she's there. I like that we get to see her explaining this as well as everybody just trying to take it in. But yes, essentially, because of the ore that it's made, it creates this barrier. The seki is basically words, but it creates the waves form a sphere around it, and because spiritual bodies are made of reishi, right? They're not corporeal in any way, and because it banishes out reishi, you'd essentially just your particulate would get it would be like if you were made of dust and someone just blew you away or something. Or the way that I think about it is it's kind of like like whenever you got like a snowball, right? And you throw it against something and the snowball just shatters into bits. It's because the snowball is like made of essentially like reishi, and the other thing is stronger than the reishi. It's going to dispel it, right? It's like that. So, not wanting to get disintegrated, they had to figure out a plan, and the plan is to form this cannonball, right? I love that she has this ridiculous name for it. And of course, they're going to use their combined spiritual energy. So the idea is that maybe they won't lose focus before they all get in, because all of them are going to be able to pour their spiritual energy into it, right? That said, it's not exactly going to be perfect, so they have to go and practice with it, make sure that they can all do it, and they are sent there. I love, again, I think just effective kind of paneling. I like getting all over our protagonists. I like that Chad's too big to fit in the panel. I like that Chad continues to be too big to fit in the panel. I also love that Kogane Hiko and Shirogane Hiko like pick up Orihime and Uryu and Ichigo, and Chad's just still over here like, nah. It's like little stuff like that. Yeah, and of course, if anyone loses their focus, then it'll it's boom, which assumably maybe they'll explode, maybe the shield will drop and they'll fall through it. But here he's got it, and it's sizzling as he's let down the barrier over here, which I assume that's what this orb is. But I like that we get this exchange between Ganju and Kukaku. That he's like, wait a minute, like, are you really serious? Are you really going to help them? Because, like, he has his reservations, especially because Ichigo is ostensibly a Soul Reaper, and they're going to help Rukia, who is a Soul Reaper. Apparently Yorichi doesn't figure into that, being a cat, so I guess cats don't get to be Soul Reapers. Oh well. But, this idea that they're still essentially helping Soul Reapers, even if their mission is going against the Soul Society, which is kind of wild. Like, it doesn't, it's like blaming the individual despite them having noble causes because they're still like a member of that, if that makes sense. It'd be like, oh, I don't want to give a loan to somebody because they work for a certain company, even if they're using that loan to, like, I don't know, move away to like move and get a different job, almost, like it's strange, right? But yeah, well, here we get Ganju looking really concerned, kind of pathetic in a way, and we get a very serious Kakaku as we learn that they actually have a big brother. Which further in the chapter, it's told to us that Soul Reapers killed him, even though he loved Soul Reapers, right? And so, because of that, like, Ganju has this connection. Again, I told you before, Bleach is all about people having connections to other people, especially dead people. It's just about people's relationship to the dead. And Ganju has this relationship to, his dead brother, and he doesn't feel like, he feels like wrong. Like, why would I help a Soul Reaper? Soul Reapers killed my brother. Like, how could I face him? What would I tell him? And Kukaku, like, very seriously scolds him. Like, says never to speak of it, and don't ever let them see you like that. Like, she's all about putting on, like, these very strong faces, right? I mean, she's a very tough customer herself. So I think the idea being, like, that she wants to reinforce this idea of, like, don't let people see you as weak. Don't let you see them as don't let them see you as pathetic. And maybe that's why she's got such an over the top personality and presentation to herself, because she needs to protect herself in this world where Shinigami essentially treat everyone else like second class citizens, right? She needs to project this power so that she can continue to be autonomous. And I think she wants to kind of impart that to her brother. That and, like, the whole idea of, telling him not to ever speak of it. It seems like the way that she's dealing with the trauma is much more Orihime style of dealing with trauma, and that she's just going to move from it without, like, ever reconciling it. Like, yeah, her brother died, he was killed by Soul Reapers. She's like, okay, that's just what it is. I'm still going to live my life, and, like, that's, like, I can't do anything about that kind of situation. And if anything, she's decided to live a kind of fiercer life in spite of that, so that, like, maybe Soul Reapers don't ever kill her. Who knows? Even if it does mark her as a criminal or a Ryoka, as they say, but nevertheless, we cut back to Renji, and he's putting on his lieutenant's insignia, and this will come to be a kind of defining piece of stylization for the lieutenants, or the vice captains, whatever you want to call them. But basically, it's been, like, expressed before by Kubutai that he didn't have the full look for the Soul Reapers down whenever he started. Like, he didn't know that captains were going to have the white robe, like, over their Shihakusho. He didn't know that also, of course, lieutenants were going to have these badges they wore, right? Which notably, in the game, the captain robes give you extra stamina, like health, and the badges give you extra spiritual pressure. They don't do anything special as far as, well, the Shihakusho and the Captain's Robe maybe do something special, but we haven't really explored that. I mean, it just looks like something they wear. I mean, what I was saying, Ganju? Byaku's scarf is just very fancy, but it doesn't seem magical. It has a really cool name. But the lieutenant's insignia is more just a marking of their position than anything, and it does have the number for their division on it. So over here we have he's got the 6th division. That is where Renji is with, and it's got also the flower for that division, or the symbol for that division here, which is the flower that was mentioned in the previous volume end. I don't remember what kind of flower that is. I am not a huge botanist or anything, so it's the one that was in the previous video. And all the flowers, like, have some sort of significance too. It's mentioned at the very end of those volumes, so it is what it is. Sure, you can find that information online, but yeah. As we know, basically, by the way, I do, like, again, typical transition. I like that we get the back of Kakaku as we go to the sky, and then we transition to, sky on the side of this building as we have Renji rushing to the meeting. Like, assumably he split up with Aizen. They went to go make their way there separately. But whenever Renji gets there, Aizen still hasn't gotten there, and Momo hasn't seen him. So maybe Aizen went somewhere else, or maybe Aizen didn't make it. We'll have to find out. But nevertheless, he gets there, and the only person that's there already is Tetsuzaemon Iba and Momo. And here we get introduced to a couple of them. So we have Iba, who is the assistant captain to the 7th Company. I love Iba's design. He looks a lot like Wesley Snipes to me, like in the movie Blade. Iba's a character that I don't think a lot of people like as much as I do. But I do like Iba. I think it's maybe because he has a design that isn't like anime pretty boy. He's just kind of a dude, and I think this design would maybe be appreciated more in, like, I don't know, a gangster manga or something. But here in Bleach, I like that it stands in pretty stark contrast to designs that we have from all the other characters, and that's one of the things that I really do appreciate, is that even though we have these Shinigami that wear the same sorts of Shihakusho, I love that we get them, even from their posture, from their poses, etc., but especially from their designs, like and the way that they wear their hair, their accessorization, just like their builds. We get a huge variety of the way that our characters look, which is, again, speaks towards Kubo's capability as a character designer. I love Iba's got like this kind of slouch to him as he's coming over here. Yeah. And so here they are in conference room 2. This is where all the vice captains, the assistant captains, lieutenants, whatever you want to call them, this is where they're all gathering. And Momo's there too. And you can see Momo is the 5th Company. You can see their flower insignia there. She's wearing it. Momo, much shorter character, and she's also sitting down. So we get her in this very kind of like almost fetal position, and she's sort of, a little worried. We get a little bit more of that as we move forward. But I like that, they come around the corner, Momo's there. We see Momo a little bit, and then we hear this other voice coming from the doorway as somebody else appears, and they turn to notice it is Matsumoto Rangiku, the vice captain for the 10th Company. And she's got like this long flowing sort of scarf that goes around both shoulders and drapes around her back. She wears her badge on her hip. You can't really see it all that well here, but that is where it is. And she's got like these different. She has like this little bracelet, and then of course prominent feature for her, other than her like really long hair, is that she also has this chain that is connected with a ring. That then the chain goes down between her breasts, and then to where else? Who knows? Anyway, she's kind of yet again. We get this iteration of like, well, she hasn't been able to reach her captain, which we find that's Captain Itsugaya. And it's curious that, again, Renji's like, wait, who's your captain? So we get the sense that either Renji's kind of doesn't, like, he isn't aware of exactly who's who, which is weird because he's been here in Soul Society for so long, but he only just recently became a vice captain. And so the way that I tend to read this, because like some people might read this as like, oh, this is, either early kind of on in Bleach in the Soul Society arc, so they're still trying to, like, Kubo hasn't really quite figured it out yet, which I don't really read it that way. I think it's a valid reading to read this as like, well, you as the reader won't know all of this, so how do we present this information to you? I think that's valid enough, but I think what this is also doing, other than just giving us this information in a way that feels a little awkward, and then what makes it maybe feel a little bit more natural to me, is that Renji just became a vice captain, and what this says to me is that it speaks towards there's a disparity between lower ranked seats and those who are like vice captains and captains, right? And so, maybe you only really know about the vice captain and captain of your division if you're a lower ranked Shinigami. Maybe that's just information that's constantly changing. I mean, we know that they're in battle. We know that they get executed for breaking laws and things like that. And so it only makes sense that, if you are just a grunt foot soldier within one of these divisions, you probably don't know who everybody's captain is, especially if you're someone like Renji who's been shuffled divisions 3 times already, right? So it makes sense that like Renji's still trying to kind of get grips of all this, which doesn't make Renji a really great, point of view character for figuring out what's going on with this conspiracy. But he's still figuring out a lot of that. I mean, it doesn't make him great for solving it, is what I'm saying. It makes him great for a character for us, the viewer, who doesn't know a lot of this information, because he can ask questions like this and then make a little bit more sense from his point of view. So I do like this because it could be easy to really be like, oh man, what's going on with Aizen? Why hasn't he made it here yet? Why is Momo having trouble reaching him? But here we get that that's also the case for, uh, for Hinamori, Momo, and not Momo, but also Matsumoto and Hitsugaya. So basically, both Momo and Matsumoto are having trouble reaching their captains and haven't seen them at all like this day. But then also, I mean, technically we know that's been the case with Renji as well. Like, assumably Renji hasn't seen Captain Kuchiki Byakuya yet. So, yeah, of course, I love that Tetsuzaemon like reminds him. He's like, yeah, it's Hitsugaya. He's like, oh yeah, Hitsugaya. So we know that Hitsugaya is a genius, but we haven't seen him yet. But apparently is a real pain, and we kind of get that sense from Matsumoto as well. Maybe Hitsugaya, despite being a genius, is maybe a little bit less reliable or unaccountable. Who knows? We'll find out. But I love that Momo stays seated, and she asks Renji if he's seen Captain Aizen. And immediately Renji remembers Aizen greeting him and kind of being friendly in that moment, and thinks to, express like, no, he hasn't seen him. Which again, we really have Renji kind of playing this role where he's like withholding information for people. Like, he told a little bit to Rukia, but he also withheld a little bit. And here he has this information that he could tell to Momo, but he's withheld it as well, right? So Renji's clearly like trying to figure out things on his own, and we're seeing him operate as this individual agent, with his own agency, with trying to kind of do things, not being entirely honest to his coworkers, right, to the rest of the members of Soul Society, and more we're getting Renji aligning with Ichigo, right? Where Renji wants to give Rukia hope. Renji wants to maybe even save her. Renji wants to figure out, what's going on to kind of condemn her. But he hasn't taken those fully rebellious steps because I think he's still trying to work within the confines of the society that he's in. He's not going to be a radical like Ichigo is, because Ichigo is already someone who is an outsider in the first place. And of course, we get that Momo gets very, very emotional about the fact that Aizen's been acting strange. He hasn't told her why, so we already know that Aizen trusts Renji maybe more than he trusts Momo, because he didn't say, "Hey Momo, here's all this stuff about Rukia's execution," and likely because even though she is his vice captain. So it's not so much like connection within it, because he worked with Renji. You could maybe say, oh well, Renji was in his division, maybe they have that connection. But no, it seems like maybe Aizen has different reasons for testing Renji. You gotta imagine it's because Renji has that connection to Rukia, right? And so he might have those insights, which unfortunately he did not. And so both Aizen and Renji were just left to kind of leave on their own and not come to any conclusions about what could be happening. Of course, Renji tries to be pretty dismissive in this moment. And it's kind of like, I feel bad for Momo. She feels like she's kind of fallen apart, which you really get this sense of like she has some real dependency issues maybe, because she doesn't know what to do over something like as simple as like a captain acting strange. So clearly they must have a more honest relationship, where she expects him to be like open with her constantly, and so the fact that she hasn't seen him and that he was acting strange and wouldn't tell her, she gets the sense that something's wrong, but she doesn't know what to do. So we already get we not only get the sense of their relationship, but we also get the real sense that Momo herself is this real kind of has trouble standing up for herself, or has trouble operating. She's a very codependent kind of character. And if you think about Aizen, who seems like the kind of person to coddle somebody, he seems like, even though he, pretty decisively talked to Renji, he still wasn't he didn't seem entirely sure of himself, and he was also like very friendly on the onset. So it seems like the kind of person who might create those sort of relationships. Whereas, Renji certainly isn't codependent on Byakuya, but we also get the sense that Byakuya is not the kind of person to like, he's like very cold and distant, So it's interesting to see those, like the character relationships can help us understand those characters as well, and vice versa. Um, Pretty cool moment. But I like that Renji does try to assuage her, tell her it's nothing, tell her that they'll probably cancel the meeting, even though he knows that something's going on, and he's wondering what's going on with Aizen, especially, right? Why haven't they not seen Aizen? I mean, he just left again with Aizen at the same time, so it doesn't make sense that Momo hasn't seen Aizen. So what's going on, right? And of course, we jump back to the other story. So again, like I said before, we're gonna have the structure of pushing and pulling between these two stories, and I love that because we can build tension and get to a really climactic moment with one, and then jump to the other. Of course, we're here at the dojo. We immediately get that as a scene setting kind of thing as we jump back in, and Ichigo's really struggling with this sphere. Ganju's not having any of it, and then we come back to Kukaku, who's pouring one out for her homie. And we finally get this reveal that the Soul Reapers are the ones that killed him. And if he was alive, he would scold her because he loves Soul Reapers, and he was a Soul Reaper. And so that adds a little bit of complexity to these characters. But I do love that we have in this moment, she's kind of got her head down. She's really considering, not just her drink, but she's kind of under the shadow of this thing that she's created, this thing that she's going to do, this kind of thing that helps them pierce into the Seirete. But they also had this kind of connection that was severed to the Seirete before. And I love that the canon is framed here that she is almost like a part of it coming down, that she's as much a part of like this canon as the canon itself, that she's its creator. And you might wonder like why that's the case. Does the canon predate her brother dying, or her brother being killed? And if so, then like what's going on? Like, was it always, because we know that she moves as her where she lives a lot, and so maybe she was always a fireworks expert, but it's only in the recent years that she's turned that fireworks expertry and the use of her cannon towards something like infiltrating the Soul Society, and you have to wonder why, So I think this really evokes a lot of those questions, and is really exciting. Now, whether or not those have been answered, that's anybody's call. And I think that's the thing, is like I think a lot of people get frustrated because Bleach is such an evocative series. We have a lot of these moments that really make us like think like, oh man, why this? Or what was the exact timeline for this? And while a lot of those things might not get answered because they're not pertinent to Ichigo's story, which is the central kind of narrative through line, I think it's fine that they're still evocative in those ways. Like, I don't think a fiction needs to be all-encompassing with answering every question it raises for you, because again, I think that kind of constricts its world. It builds a neat wall around all the cool and interesting and creative stuff that it imagines, and outside of that wall, there's just nothing. So yeah, it's fine. We do get how to distinguish Kogane Hiko from Shirogane Hiko. It's the face shape and the cleft chin. If you didn't know, if you really wanted to distinguish these two characters, again, Shirogane Hiko, got a Shirogane chin, go. Anyway, that's it for my looking at the art and the narrative here. Not as much stuff that I want to spend a ton of time on, but overall, solid chapter. Has a few cool interactions that I like. Has a pretty good chapter cover. Not as striking as the one before, but yeah, I forgot we're at the beginning of the volume. I can just drop all the way back. But as far as my take on this chapter, I really I find myself immediately more drawn into the conspiracy stuff. Of course, that's a plot that literally right this moment, I want to go and read more of that plot. I want to go to the next video and start recording that video because I just want to get to the next chapter, right? And so I don't blame you if you're watching this and you're like, oh man, I want to go ahead, and hopefully you're watching this to the point where I already have the next video uploaded. You don't have to wait. But yeah, it's good stuff, and I love getting to slowly meet all these Soul Reaper characters. As we know, there are 13 squads, so we're going to meet at least 26 characters, at least. That's not even counting other people in other seats. So it's a lot of characters to meet, a lot of designs to see, a lot of relationships to be revealed. um, machinations and machinations, figuring out who knows what, who's privy to what information, who's trying to figure out what, and with who they can trust. And I think that's a whole really captivating plot. And so I'm interested in all that, but also, I'm liking a lot of the interactions that we're getting between the Shivas and our main company of characters. Although in a lot of ways, Orihime and Chad have kind of taken the back seat to what's going on. Mostly because I think they both have a much more pleasant personality, whereas Ichigo's quick to fight, and he's the one that's proving inept with his spiritual power, and then Uryu is also one to call out. I like his line, like, I don't even care if you're a fireworks wizard. You're not going to shoot us into that, we'll die. So I like that from them, but yeah, I do wish that we got a little bit more. Which, I mean, we got some from Orihime and Chad in earlier chapters, from the previous volume, where Chad got to connect with Yuichi and Orihime got to heal Jidambo. So it's not as if we're not getting nothing from those characters. They're certainly there and present. It's just that I find myself kind of wishing they had more interactions here with the Shiva family, instead of just constant startle surprise and kind of being in the background. I kind of wish that we would have gotten a moment where we got to see how good each and every one of them was with the Spirit Core, so that we could get a sense of okay, well, maybe, obviously, I think Uryu would have no problem, right? He's a Quincy, he's all about manipulating Reishi, he uses devices like his Quincy cross to create a bow out of Reishi, and so he would have no problem kind of making the orb work. Whereas I feel like a character like Chad might have a little bit more of a struggle, or maybe Orihime would. I don't know, but I think that could even be done comedically. We get Uryu, he puts his hands on it. We get a whole half-page, spread of the orb opening. We get Orihime, she puts her hands on it. It's it's a quarter page. When Chad puts his, it's a little bit less. And the Ichigo just is huh, how? Could be good, but nevertheless, even if we don't get those sorts of panels, even if we don't get as much time for those other minor characters, I think it does a good job of, this chapter has done a good job of balancing the two different kind of stories that we have going on and pulling and pushing between them. Yeah, and we get a little bit more intrigue here too from the Kukakus. We learn kind of that extra bit of depth of their brother who was killed by Soul Reapers, even though he was one. And I mean, maybe that helps to align them more with Ichigo and crew, because the Soul Reapers now seem like they're planning to kill Rukia, even though she is a Soul Reaper, right? And so, in a lot of ways, it's as much as Ganju and Kukaku seem to have reservations here, if anything, this is a mission that is going to essentially do right by the memory of their brother, right? That is, it is saving a Soul Reaper who is to be killed by other Soul Reapers. Just like Ichigo had said before, whenever he encountered Uryu, and Uryu became embittered against Soul Reapers because, if not for the Soul Reapers, maybe his grandfather would still be alive. And Ichigo had to be like, "You idiot! Your grandfather believed in working alongside Soul Reapers. He would never want you to be galvanized against them." And so, if you want to uphold his memory, it's less about kicking their asses and way more about, building those bridges. Anyway, that's it for this chapter. That's all I have to say. I like this one, of course. Not as much as maybe the previous ones or other ones, but I think it's still a solid chapter nevertheless. And I think it doubles as a very good introduction for Volume 10 and what we're going to get moving forward in this volume. It introduces those two different plots again to us, and it kind of reminds us of all of that. And it gives us the stakes and kind of an idea of where we are moving forward, as we have Ichigo and Ko are going to break into the Seirete, and Renji is going to get further into figuring out what's going on, and we have this emergency meeting happening soon. So that's it. Let's get into spoilers. And immediately, I was talking about thinking about that kind of connection with Kaien, right? And that Kaien would have wanted them to help. And it's well, yeah, especially Kaien would have been yeah, help them out. They're saving Rukia. So it's kind of wild that they they just coincidentally, I mean, it's a manga. Everything's going to be kind of a little bit tighter written than expected. There are more neat narrative bows than not. But of course, they're helping Rukia. It was Kayan's love interest, right? They're special friends, So it only makes sense that that they help out because this is somebody that was significant to their brother. And so it's no mention that, of course, of course he loves Soul Reapers. This is assumably someone that he loved and someone that Rukia cared a lot deeply. And so you'd hope that they would help Rukia out. And of course we know that Kayan was killed. I got like we could say, of course we know Kayan was killed by Hollows, but really we know Kayan was killed by Soul Reapers technically because he was killed by Aizen, right? It was right. Am I tripping? Am I getting it wrong? Because I thought it was Aizen's machinations in the first place, which is why they had to, which is why Metastasia killed Kayan anyway. But I could be wrong. And that could be something that happened completely independent of Aizen's meddling. It's also, man, talking about Aizen in all these chapters and be like, yeah, Aizen's trying to figure it out, and he just seems like such a good guy, but he doesn't have all the information. It's like, well, yeah, because that's all put on. And I think rereading it, like, of course I can immediately be like, man, Aizen, you're suspicious as shit. You're laying all these seeds of doubt. But, like, I like that there's, like, a little bit more there to kind of not make it seem that way. Like, I like that Hitsugaya is missing as well. And that you get really the sense of, like, everybody's kind of busy, and maybe vice captains don't see their captains on a daily basis, and so on and so forth. I think the idea is that this is supposed to make you kind of feel like Aizen, like, concerned for Aizen. Like, oh, man, he's getting too close. He's getting too deep, and then he shows up dead later, right? But is what it is. Let's move forward. I like Ganju. I apologize for that. Some other kind of, it's interesting that Mars gets mentioned here because typically the cosmology outside of just like the moon and the sun doesn't come up in Bleach a lot. But hey, here it is in this character poem, right? And as far as like reaching the truth, one thing that I wanted to mention there is, of course, Ganju can't ever reach the truth of the death of his brother, right? And so, like right now, he is so misled by this lie that essentially was told, this lie that Soul Reapers killed him. It's got to be Aizen meddling because the Soul Reapers dropped his corpse off, right? And so they assumed it was them. God, I had to get back to those chapters and read it again for sure to remember. But yeah, like like Ganju doesn't know the full truth of what happened to his brother, and that's what's fueling a lot of his like both agony and foolishness as a character right now. Again, I mean, like I think it's maybe a little bit less curious that we get Ikaku here because he's going to be important, even though he hasn't shown up even in this chapter. So it's like it's weird that Ikaku gets shown here, but we don't have a character bit for Momo or for Matsumoto or God forbid Iba. Oh well. Tattoos in the Sky, pretty cool. I'm trying to think of some of the other kind of spoiler bits, the other things that we know. I'm pretty sure in the Thousand Year Blood War, it's established that the Squad Zero used this to go to the palaces. So I feel like the Shiba have had the cannons for a while, but I think the idea, like I said before in our my kind of review of everything, my talking about the art and the story, the art and narrative, I had mentioned that the cannon maybe only recently has been used to infiltrate the Seirete, which is why Kukaku herself had to invent the sphere for firing people, because the cannon probably was used to traverse to the royal realm. Might have also been used just for fireworks. You could still just use it for fireworks, but I think the idea that it's been repurposed in this way is certainly the nature of things with Kukaku. And, you think about why she would repurpose it, and it's like, well, maybe she's repurposed in this way following Kayan's death. It's unclear. But, I mean, she works with Urahara, she works with Yoruichi, so it only makes sense that she's kind of in on all of that. Let's see. Of course, I don't think the Reishukaku, the Spirit Cores, come up ever again. Could be wrong. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Um, it's a shame we don't get to see any fireworks wizards later in the series. Really prove or you wrong, I guess. I don't know. Um, yeah, I like that they mention he's a makeshift Soul Reaper, like because they trained him wrong and on purpose. Uh, but I wonder, if if Ichigo at this point, like Ichigo is Quincy Soul Reaper, Hollow and Full Ringer, right? He hasn't awakened his full ring powers technically, but he's still got all those elements. So I wonder if some of that maybe deals with the fact that he can't exhibit, like, because he's already exerting his reishi towards like other things. I wonder if that's maybe a little bit of why he can't really do the orb. I don't know, because I mean, like, that's always been a thing. It's like, yeah, he didn't go to the academy, he didn't learn properly. He's just kind of been, cheating his way up these steps one way or another. So yeah. Anyway, let's see other things. Of course, we know that Ganju would eventually come to use the fireworks later, so it only makes sense that, of course, she's the fireworks expert. He's the fireworks protege, maybe. I'm trying to think of, like, reasons why sand would be, because he has all these sand techniques. I wonder how that factors into fireworks stuff, other than maybe putting out a flame. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know that the Seki Seki rock comes up again either. Maybe it's used in Muken. That would make a lot of sense. But yeah. I'm trying to think of some other like bits. I know that the like Seirute wall gets brought up again, because I remember they're worried about the wall being broken, and I'm pretty sure it gets broken by Yuha Bak. So he's so powerful that his reishi does not disintegrate. He's actually able to shatter the wall. I'm pretty sure that's the case in the 1,000-Year Blood War. So there aren't any scenes of all of the Sternritter being cannonballed into the Seirete, but maybe there could have been. Maybe in a different manga. Otherwise, I'm trying to think of what other connections that we might have here. Because I mean, like, we know that this is all like the situation with Cayenne, and we've already kind of discussed that and the sort of misgivings that both of them have. Yeah, so I was talking about. I guess that's the whole page there. I was talking about them having to wear these badges, and I think it makes sense for Renji because he's recently been appointed, but maybe Tetsuzaemon just hasn't had to go to any meetings. Maybe he's more recent as well. And that they only really have to wear the badges. Like, we think of the badges being such a part of their uniform, but the idea is, like, obviously they have to wear them here because they're working in official capacity. But maybe, and then, like, they wear them later on because they're on these really big, like, big Gote operations, right? To stop Aizen in the Karakura town, or in Hueco Mundo, or to, like, whatever they're doing. I guess it makes sense that they have this regalia kind of on for those other situations, even though it's striking for an experienced reader to get to this point and be like, don't they always just wear these? It's like, no, I guess not. Like, of course, we get our first meeting with various characters, and I like that, like, just like this mention that it could take like half a day for everybody to get there. It's like, yeah, they have like Shunpo and stuff, but the Seirete, I assume, pretty big. People are pretty racked up in their day to day. So, of course, Captain Hitsugaya is always buried under paperwork, right? So maybe that's what he's doing. Of course, one thing that does get brought up here that I think ends up being kind of significant is, I think, so she mentions that Aizen has been acting strange all day and wouldn't tell her why. I think that's intentional, right? And it's interesting that Matsumoto brings up that Hitsugaya hasn't been around and that she hasn't seen him, and it's annoying because that already creates this kind of link that, like, okay, well, Hitsugaya is really busy. And so later on, whenever Aizen tries to kind of convince Momo that it's Hitsugaya that's going to use, I think, the Sokokyoku, something like that. He tries to, I'm pretty sure Aizen, in his letter, tries to convince Momo that it's Hitsugaya is the villain here, something like that. I'm pretty sure that, like, you know, there's that connection there, that kind of turning people against each other. So I think Aizen acting all strange all morning was 100% an act, and that he was doing that specifically because he wanted to make Momo worry, because he knew that she would, because Aizen likes to mess with Momo's life. Plus, you know, why not? Why not make her go up against Hitsugaya? That's that's like Aizen's favorite thing to do, is like make Momo and Hitsugaya have to like deal with each other. Anyway, but yes, he works them against each other in more ways than one, as you know. I do like that we get Renji kind of being dismissive here. That, like, I think he's not quite sure how to approach these problems, or how to sort of help people out. And again, like, we'll get a much more kind of proactive Renji as the story goes on, but I like that he grows from this point. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, we've kind of covered everything with the Shibas. We've covered all of that. That's basically it that I have for this chapter. Not a ton to talk about spoiler-wise, but, you know, a few things here and there. I look forward to the next chapter, but that's it for this one, folks. So thank you so much for listening through all of this. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, go ahead and give the video a like. I do appreciate that. Let me know anything that you want to know. I'm always down to talk in the comments. But otherwise, you know what it is. Always a reminder that I do have a Patreon that you can support me on there and support the channel. I do appreciate that very much. And so for everyone that has supported, your name is on the screen right now, and I am giving you thanks specifically. I do appreciate that quite a lot. Words. Anyway, that's it for this one, folks. As always, I have been Karakura Gold, your host of this series, and I am reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.